Hoop Heads podcast is brought to you by Head Start Basketball.
Stephen had some intangibles that I would tell coaches, hey, you can put weight on them, you can get them a little bit quicker, but the package already comes with knocking it down better than most of the guys you have in your program now. The package already comes with his ability to change speeds. The package already comes with the intangible of seeing things materialize before they actually happen. Great passer. He can handle the ball. But you know how some college coaches are? If you don't pass the eye test, you don't pass the eye test.
Shonn Brown is the head boys varsity basketball coach at Charlotte Christian School in North Carolina. Shonn played collegiately at Clearwater Christian College, where he was an All-American and was elected to the school's Hall of Fame after finishing his playing career. Shonn has been coaching at Charlotte Christian School for 19 years and enjoyed tremendous success. His record at Charlotte Christian is 413 and 166. He has had the opportunity to coach some great players in his career and is thankful for that opportunity to impact young men through the game of basketball. One of those great players is Steph Curry, and we'll talk with Coach Brown about what it was like to coach Steph back in his high school days before he became the NBA star that we all know today. Leave us a 5-star rating and review wherever you listen to the Hoop Heads podcast, and don't forget to check out our new website, www.hoopheadspod.com. Please get ready to take some notes as you listen to this episode with Steph Curry's high school coach, Shonn Brown, from Charlotte Christian School in the state of North Carolina. Hello and welcome to the Hoop Heads podcast. It's Mike Klinzing here with my co-host Jason Sunkel, and tonight we are pleased to welcome to the podcast Shonn Brown from Charlotte Christian High School. Shonn, welcome.
Thanks. It's great to be here. Appreciate you guys reaching out and allowing me to have this opportunity to talk with you.
Yeah, we're excited to get an opportunity to kind of dig into your basketball background, talk a little bit about the program that you've been able to build at Charlotte Christian, and let's start out by asking you about your childhood and how you got into the game of basketball as a kid. What made you fall in love with the game when you were younger?
A lot of people in my family played basketball. My father would take me to the park just to shoot basketball. I have 2 other brothers, an older brother and a younger brother, and at the time, obviously, it was me and my older brother. And we just kind of mess around, shoot hoops, and, my father just taught us the game and allowed us to enjoy the game and said it'd be a cool way, if you're at the playground to meet friends. So he was never pushy. He never put any kind of pressure on us. So as I got into, 8 years old, 9, 10, 11, 12, just still kind of played at the park. I never played AAU or anything, but I would just go play pickup with my friends. And, the days of the playground, I guess, are kind of over where a lot of people just don't really even play basketball outside anymore. But it was very fun for me growing up. Never felt like a duty of anything like that, but just fun hanging out, playing. And then I kind of got a little bit more serious in, middle school and high school and just worked on my game. And I played at a small Christian school. And really through my high school coach, he just continued to build confidence in me. And, my parents were hands-on but hands-off. After a game, it was just, great job. How are you doing? Just continue to work. Never being my worst critic, but also just, being my best fan. So that kind of was really important to me and just allowed me to grow as a player. And then I was fortunate enough to play small college basketball I coach the players that I coach now. I tell them they are much better than me. But I had an opportunity to play at Clearwater Christian College. And really there, my college coach, as I kind of was going through graduation, saying, hey, what do you want to do after? And I had done really well academically, and I was thinking about med school, but really didn't want to go right back to school after I got out of college. And he said, you ever thought about, teaching? You could teach science. You've done well academically. You have an education minor. Why don't you think about teaching and maybe coaching? And I was like, Coach, I'm a basketball player. I don't know that I'm a coach. So just kind of, thought through that and ended up at a school in Augusta, Georgia, where I had my first job and just fell in love with coaching a JV boys basketball team.
So what was it about?
Never did I think anything more than I just want to do this. I enjoy teaching science, and I could do this for a little while, or I could maybe even do it forever. Then obviously, life happens, and a year later, I got married. I was also the assistant coach on the varsity team. We won a state championship. Again, I was an assistant, and we did relatively well when I was on the JV team. And the interesting about that year that we won the state championship is we had two losses that year at Augusta Christian School. And the two losses were to Charlotte Christian School, where the legendary Philadelphia 76ers Bobby Jones, he was the head coach there. So we were like 28-2, had an unbelievable season. And at the end of that school year, the principal that had hired me at Augusta Christian took a job at Charlotte Christian. So a year went by, and we were in the state championship again at Augusta Christian. And this principal called me and said, "Hey, you should come check out the school," because he became a mentor to me. We came up and visited Charlotte Christian School, and this is back in the summer of 1999. And they offered me a job. I was just up kind of walking through, talking with the head of school, talking with the principal, not really kind of interviewing, but I guess they viewed it as an interview. And they offered me a job to teach science, and it had nothing to do with basketball. My wife was she was 8.5 months pregnant with our son, who was not born yet. We went back to Augusta, Georgia. He was born. We lived in a family's basement for 2 weeks, and we moved up to Charlotte. And the interesting thing about this is when I got back to Charlotte, I just happened to be walking through the gym, and Bobby Jones was sweeping the floor. And he said to me, he was like, "Hey, my head of school told me that you would be around some. You're Shonn Brown." And he said, "I need an assistant basketball coach." And my mouth just dropped to the floor, like I was kind of paralyzed, uh, because I really wanted to do something with basketball, but I took a job really as an educational opportunity. It was a bigger school, bigger city, and we just thought, it'd be a great opportunity for my family. And there he is, Bobby Jones, very unassuming, and I'm like, I didn't even ask any questions. "Yes, sir. Where do I need to be? When do I need to be there? You tell me, and I will be there." And that kind of started, I would say, my career at Charlotte Christian School, and I was an assistant coach in that first year.
Were you a fan of Bobby Jones and the Sixers prior to kind of becoming aware of him at Charlotte Christian?
You know what? The very interesting thing is I had an uncle who loved Bobby Jones. So, like, as you're younger, you're watching basketball, and sometimes you'll follow people, and then you would hear of people, but then you might not follow them. But then a game happens to be on a Sunday, and my uncle's yelling, "Bobby Jones, Bobby Jones!" So then I'm like, "Oh, that's who Bobby Jones is." So when I met him at first, the name just kept, resonating. And then my high school coach was a 76ers fan. So all these people, throughout my life were Bobby Jones fans. And now here I was standing in front of him, getting ready to be an assistant coach to him. So I coached as an assistant for a year at Charlotte Christian. And at the end of the season, Bobby came to me and said, "Hey, my son's going to be going to college. You've done a pretty good job. You should be the head coach." And at first I kind of thought he was joking, because the first year when I was an assistant, he actually called me up, and I still don't know the truth about this. I've never really asked him. He called me up in the middle of the season. He said, "Shonn, I'm not coming to the game tonight." And I'm like, "Excuse me?" He goes, "Yeah, I'm sick. You're going to miss the game." And I literally freaked out, like, "Coach, I'm an assistant. I was a JV coach. Like, you want coach a game? Basketball is big, at Charlotte Christian and in the state of North Carolina. Like, every kid thinks they're going to play at Chapel Hill." So in my mind, I'm like, what? I thought he was joking, and he actually was serious. We won the game. It was a home game. We won by 1 point on a buzzer beater. And I was like, "Thank you, Jesus. I did
That's a
not
good
want to be the."
debut. That's a good debut.
So after that, like I said previously, so he said, "You should be the head coach." And I said, okay, coach, I don't know that I'm ready. And he said, look, I will be your assistant for a year because you're just going to need that as you navigate, just the challenges of being a head coach, the pressures of that, handling parents. So he became my assistant, or maybe I could say we were co-head coaches for a year. And then and we won a state championship 2001. And then he became the middle school coach, which again speaks to how humble he is. And he's just an awesome man of God and great character. He became our middle school basketball coach, and I've been coaching this program ever since. So it's my 19th year right now.
What was the dynamic like for you, first of all, as an assistant that first year with, Bobby, who obviously had a tremendous pro career and well known, and then when the script got flipped the next year, where now suddenly you're the head coach, and although you described it as being co-coaches, still your name was on the nameplate at least as the head coach. So describe kind of how the personal dynamic and then also the coaching dynamic, how that flipped and what that was like those first 2 years, first as the assistant and then as the head coach.
Yeah, Bobby allowed me to do everything. He allowed me to make mistakes. He would never, like call me out in front of the team, even if I made, like a boneheaded decision. He would bring me in and say, hey, you may want to think about this. The things that you didn't practice today were pretty good, or, we probably need to be more focused on this. We got a couple of players, that are creating some drama. How would you kind of handle that? So, he's one of the best assistant coaches / mentors I had. He really stepped back and allowed me to grow into the role, really showing me what's really important about coaches, which A is really caring about the players. I mean, obviously you need to have talent if you want to win some games, but then trying to grow those boys into young men, because it's something they can carry with them the rest of their life. So he really showed me how to build a program, always care about your JV team, always care about your middle school team, because you want them to always be, because we're a JK through 12 school. So we don't want to be a school where every year we have 4 transfers that are now going to be on the varsity team. We wanted to create a culture and an environment where middle schoolers saw that, you know what, half this team that's varsity now played middle school here or they played JV. I literally will have a chance to play varsity at Charlotte Christian School. And I've stayed true to that, developing our middle school kids in our program. So we hire the best coaches possible and run through a system to help develop those kids. Winning is not really important to us at that level. It's more about developmental things and training and fundamentals. So those are the things he really instilled in me. And Bobby is a man of faith, so he is a Christian and always has kept that to the forefront. He taught me things about, being a great husband, because I just had become a father. I was married, for 2 years, and here we had a kid. So a lot of nights spent with Mr. and Mrs. Jones over dinners, helping to figure out parenting, because when we moved to Charlotte, we had no family that lived here. So they really became like a second family to me and my wife Alicia and my son Terrell at the time. But really just helping me how to build a program at a school, because there's pressure at every level, even pressure at Charlotte Christian. Even if you put it on yourself, you want to have success, and most people measure that by wins and losses. So it's been awesome through my journey that I've learned those things from him, and we still kind of talk. I actually saw him last week. He came to a game to watch our team play, so we still stay in contact. But I'm forever indebted to him, because he really is the one that allowed me to have this opportunity to become the head coach. If they would have opened the job up, I mean, you would have had so many applicants. I don't think I would have even been in the running, because I just did not have the experience at the time, but they believed in me.
I think that's a great thing that he was able to do for you in that, I heard you describe the fact that he let you make mistakes and kind of experiment. And I think that's one of the things that if you're a head coach and you have assistants, that a good head coach really tries to stretch their assistants and give them responsibilities and give them the opportunity to to do things that, maybe a head coach who is more dictatorial might not, afford their assistant coaches the same opportunity. So if you think back to that first year when you take over and Bobby's your assistant, what were you most nervous about when you got that job for the first time and you're going to go in and talk to your players for the first time, or you're thinking about what we need to do this year? What was the biggest challenge, or what made you the most nervous heading into that very first year?
Well, how would people view me? I'm African American, and at the time, quite frankly, Charlotte Christian was extremely vanilla. So it was just a challenge being a diverse person coming into the Charlotte Christian community. I was probably one of three diverse people, whether you talk about African American, Latino, Hispanic, probably on campus in terms of being employed there at the time. So that was something that, man, what do people think? This guy's not running the program. Is he going to totally change whatever and try to bring in a bunch of different people? And honestly, the other thing was, how much basketball do I really know?
Yeah.
You get involved into a game and you got to draw up a play because you want to put your kids in a position to have success. Your kids want to know that you understand the game. You need to be able to demonstrate that you can teach the game, do that well, and you got to ultimately be able to show that you can improve your players. So, man, a lot of conversations around that, watching a lot of videos, going to a lot of other college practices. Which I still do, probably not as much, now, but I did a lot of that, just meeting up with different guys. Honestly, coaches, like I'll give you an example, someone like Shaka Smart, who I knew way back when he was kind of an assistant at other schools, trying to meet up with guys like that, trying to work camps and just have discussions around the game of basketball, the fundamentals of the game, and how do you really get the attention of guys on your team, and how do you motivate them, inspire them, challenge them, all of that. How do you run efficient and effective practices? I remember sitting down watching Coach Hurley's practice planning video, and Coach Bobby Knight. I had all kinds of videos. Another big mentor of mine was Lee Rose. If you remember Lee Rose, he took UNC Charlotte to the Final Four way back when. I was introduced to him, and he taught me so much about basketball and the X's and O's and how you treat people. So I would say the biggest thing for me was fitting into the Charlotte Christian culture, and then figuring out, knowing who I would be as a coach. Because, a lot of coaches, they look at other coaches and say, I'm going to emulate that. But that coach is not who they're designed to be. So I really wanted to find out who I was as a coach and how I would build the program at Charlotte Christian and create an atmosphere where kids and families would be excited about being a part of our program here at Charlotte Christian.
How long did that take to where you felt like you had that particular piece of it, the culture, where you felt like you had that under control is maybe the wrong word, but where you felt like you had established what you wanted to establish? Because obviously in year one, you were still kind of trying to figure it out. And as you go along, we all get better and improve, and we think about, the things that we want to do. And you obviously were going to all the clinics and talking to coaches and mentors. And so when do you feel like, in what year do you feel like you really had established and put your stamp on the Charlotte Christian program?
Coach, I would say it took me about 5 years, around 2004, 2005. We won a state championship, like I said, that year. And I learned a lot just about, tremendous pressure, but we had really good players. So really it was my role just not to mess them up. But the whole culture piece of trying to, like you say, put the coach's stamp, because you wanted to hire the right people, train them. Because, Jim Collins talks about people, it's all about the people. It's all about the people. He also says it's about the right people. So, being a faith-based school, the box gets pretty small, or the pool of people get pretty small. There's a lot of awesome people that can do great things in terms of coaching basketball. But then when I'm having to seek out people who don't work full time at our school, looking for them to roll in here at 2:45 to coach our seventh grade team, or be able to come in here at 4 to coach our eighth grade team, and a lot of those people aren't full time on campus. It's a challenge to find solid people who are, believers, that will fit into the culture that I wanted to build. So I started there with getting the right people in place, who are like-minded in terms of what my vision was for the program. And it took about 5 years to do that. And then we were able to get some people that actually were teachers at the school, that coached basketball. So we were able to train them in terms of the vision and, how we wanted our program to operate. And and then we've had good players for a while. So really, it took, I would say, about 5 years. And you never get there. I mean, you absolutely never get there. Every year, you can coach for 30 years. Every year, there's something learned, something new that you could learn, some area that you could grow in. And I think I probably grew the most in trying to really understand how to build relationships, because I wanted my players to come by my classroom throughout the day. I didn't just want it to be, I'll see you in the gym and then I never see you again. So it took a lot of time of doing things outside of practice to build those relationships, and getting our guys together outside of practice, whether it be, well, let's go watch a college game, or it might be, we're going to go bowling, or, up until this year, we had pregame meals always at my house. This year, just because we have 4 seniors, we're doing at another player's house who lives really close to the school. So we created different things, that players, I would say now, were tradition in what we do in our program, going to the team camps, having that, 2 or 3 night bonding with our team, even though we're playing basketball while we're there, but we would set up other things to do around that. Because culture is really important. And you have to build a great culture, and then you have to be able to sustain it. And the thing for me, as still the overseer and director of the program, is that winning, and you've heard this, and it sounds cliche, but winning is a byproduct of what you do, and you're not going to have the best players all the time. So you want to create a program where the kids will have an awesome experience, regardless of wins and losses, and they will want to come back after they graduate. And we've been fortunate enough to be able, to do that. And I don't want to get ahead of myself here, but I'll give you an example of that. 3 years ago, we were 12 and 18. Right now, we're 25 and 1. So a lot of guys that played as freshmen, that played varsity, are now seeing the fruit of that. Just the experience. I mean, when we were 12 and 18, I want to say we lost probably 11 games by 3, 2, 1. We just didn't have the experience to close out a game. And now they've stuck to the process, and we're 25 and 1. So the culture when we were 12 and 18 was still good. Like, we played a turn. The kids would tell you, how was that year? Well, we were 12 and 18, but man, we went to Utah and played in a basketball tournament. One year we went to the Bahamas. So, they run the program at a high level. We still enjoyed it. We still got better. And now they look back when we had senior night and they're like, wow, I just can't even realize that we were 12 and 18 3 years ago, and right now we're really kind of having an amazing season. That's healthy culture.
Yeah, I think that that's something that every program should aspire to, in a sense that, to your point, you can't win every year. You don't always have the best players. You can't always control the outcome. But what you can control is that environment and the fact that kids are going to enjoy and be proud of being a part of your program. If you look back, would you say that as a young coach, did you value culture the same way when you first started as you do today? Or would you say earlier in your career, maybe you thought, oh, I got to learn the X's and O's, and, I got to outcoach somebody, and come to realize that the culture is more important? Or did you always have in your mind that culture and those relationships were really very important?
As I've gone through the years and just studied different programs, now I'm able to. So, to answer your question, it's definitely changed to some degree because the more you learn, you look at, okay, what is a healthy culture? And I think early on, I definitely probably was more about we just need to win. Just being kind of young and dumb. You're a high school coach. You actually have, to me, I believe, one of the greatest coaching jobs in the country, from a high school experience, and the resources we're blessed with, and being at a great school. Um, and you just get beyond that, and you start looking at programs that, at the college level, even at the pro level. So, I was fortunate enough to talk with several coaches, study their programs, and then really just try to sit back and go, okay, what do I want this program to look like, and how do I want to run this program? So certainly, um, as I matured, got older, after kind of researching and having, talking with mentors and having some things in my mind, certainly it changed. But I will say, for the last, if you were to talk to a kid that played for me 10 years ago, they would tell you, yeah, the culture was healthy then, the culture is still healthy. Probably the one thing they would say is they'll still come around to some of our practices, coach is getting a little soft. Because there's certain things like I would say, all right, everybody wears white socks, nothing else. No wristbands, no headbands, no. It was just like everyone. So over the years, you know, I've kind of given in a little bit to those things. I mean, obviously there's non-negotiables that we have in our program, but now that's not really as important because I still want to be able to reach our players. So we do have standards and core values in our program, but there's some things early on where it's kind of like, well, it's Coach Brown's way or the highway. As I want to still relate to my players, want them to know that I love them and really care about them. Some of that has changed. Like the large part of our process hasn't changed, but some of those things have changed, or we'll do it by committee. Okay, guys, what do you think? Are we going to wear ties tomorrow for Friday's game, or will we like all of you want to wear the team sweatsuits? So you kind of like put it on them, but whatever we're going to do, everyone's doing it. So you allow them to make some decisions. You allow them to take some ownership because obviously in the game of life and the real scheme of things, hopefully these guys will be husbands, they'll be fathers. So you want to train them in being able to, make decisions, how to work with one another. Obviously if you get married, you need to be able to work with your spouse and compromise, and live life together and enjoy it. So, a lot of things have stayed the same, but there's certain things that I know I've definitely kind of caved in on. And when guys come back, they'll be like, Coach, when I was playing for you, you never would have. It's just
That's
because
awesome.
that's not as important to me today as it was when you were playing. I was still growing and learning as a coach. So, I've kind of just dialed it back on that.
So, what are some of the things that you haven't dialed back on? If you were going to look at and you say the standards, the pillars of your program there at Charlotte Christian, what are those things that are, in your mind, non-negotiables if you're going to have a successful program?
Okay, so a big one is cause over self. If you want to play an individual sport, this is not for you. We are about the cause of the team. Again, being a Christian school, the cause for Christ. But we're all in it together. We're not blaming. We're not making excuses, and we're going to be about doing and making decisions that are ultimately best for the team, not one individual. Another one for us is we talk a lot about integrity because that's one, character and integrity. That's one of those things we need you to really make that something that's important in your life. So we're big on that. Okay, if you come to practice and you're not going to give us your best, but if I ask you and you say you're giving your best and everyone knows you're not, okay, what kind of integrity do you have? Okay, all we're aiming for excellence. A lot of people talk about striving for perfection. We talk about aiming for excellence because excellence you can really attain that. I mean, perfection you can strive for it. You're never going to get that. I mean, you're just not, because we're no one is perfect. So being about excellence in all that we do, how we travel, how we conduct ourselves with the officials on the floor. Like, here's something I haven't, I started a long time ago. Like, you will not see any of my basketball players in public when they're with me with headphones on, because just to me, again, it's just something for me. I think it's impersonal. I think it shows that, okay, whatever I'm doing right now is extremely more important than talking to my teammate or the person to my left or to my right. And we're like, no, no, no. That's not how you build relationship. And we're not going to give off that vibe to anyone. So, integrity and character are two huge things. Cause over self is a really big one. And now, as you kind of know, you look at all of the analytics of the game. Next play speed is something I would say in probably the last 5 years or so that we've also been preaching to our players. Like, "Hey, just get on to the next play. You won't make every shot. Okay, you turn the ball over, so what? You know what? That doesn't matter to me that you turn the ball over. What I care about is if you're not trying. What I care about is if you don't give max effort. What I care about is if you let your teammates down because you selfishly decided in that moment, I'm going to kind of pout about woe is me and I messed up. So that's something else that we're really big about in our program. And ultimately, being a Christian school, we're about honoring Christ in all that we do. Whether we win or, whether we lose, we're going to win graciously. We're going to lose graciously. We're going to respect every opponent, but fear no one. Are really some of the pillars of our program. So, you were able to watch a practice. It's no nonsense, but we have fun. I really don't believe in having the coach effort. And our guys really learn that in the preseason. They learn it at the JV level. Obviously, middle school is a little bit different. But at the varsity level, if I'm having a coach effort, then we're going to have some serious challenges with whoever that is. It's not that I'll give up on you, but it will be extremely difficult for you because you're totally unmotivated. So we try to really pour into the lives of our guys because, and you've heard this before, the basketball is just a vehicle that we can use to get to other things and hopefully grow them. So it's a fun game. It's an awesome game. It's a special game to me. But ultimately, I've been blessed just to use it to build men.
So do you think that all those things that you just mentioned that are the pillars of your program, do you think that those are standing on the foundation of the relationships that you've been able to build with your players?
Yes. As players come back and I talk to them, I'll ask them certain questions, some that may be married now and I was invited to their wedding and now, then they have kids and we may have a player and a spouse over for dinner or they may have us over for dinner. To just be able to sit back and watch and then ask them like, hey, you remember I used to harp on this? Where are you with that right now? And a high percentage of the time, those values are continuing to be carried out through their life, which is really cool and special to me to know that beyond basketball, I mean, some are still playing, whether it's pros or overseas, but even when they're stopped playing, they're carrying those values into other arenas of their life. So that's really special to see, and that's really what keeps me going. That keeps me going when you see the fruit of that when these guys leave high school or when they're done with college and they're really just in life and in the workforce being great citizens in certain communities. That gets me jazzed up consistently.
Yeah, I mean, that goes back to what you said right from the very beginning is that you're using basketball as a tool, as a vehicle to be able to impact kids' lives. And I think really that when we've talked to coaches from all across the country, that's one of the things consistently that we've heard from some of the best coaches that are out there is that, yes, I'm a basketball coach, but even more importantly than that, I'm trying to develop the character of my players so that when they go out and they do go into society and they get a job or they get married or they have a family, that they're able to be productive, they're able to be happy, and that the things that they've learned within the various coaches programs are what's been able to drive them to their ultimate success. And for you, it's got to be extremely gratifying to have your kids come back and, be able to go out and have dinner with them, or just even have a simple phone call. I always tell people that's one of the things that is the most satisfying for me as a coach, is when you have people that come back and want to be a part of what you're doing. I have a guy sitting right next to me now, Jason, who came to my basketball camp when he was younger. And, now he's works for me as a coach, and, we're doing the podcast together. And that's one of those things that you can't put a price on that.
No, so again, like I said, it gets me jazzed up. It keeps me going. And I just love that, because when they get into, the real life, and even when they have challenges, when you get a phone call of, Coach, man, I just want to talk this through with you, or Coach, I just accomplished this at this level. You just become a big cheerleader and look for nothing in return other than just please try your best to do the right thing. And that's really all I could ever ask of the current play. I mean, the former players that I've had is, hey, try to do the right thing. I hope you're continuing to work on your faith and your faith journey, and don't be a stranger.
Registration is now open at www.headstartbasketball.com for this summer's Head Start basketball camps. We'll be hosting camps this summer in Strongsville, Westlake, Avon Lake, Oberlin, Brunswick, Highland Heights, Mentor, and Hudson. At Head Start Basketball, we care deeply about making a positive impact on the lives of young basketball players, both on and off the court. It's through building strong relationships with our players, parents, and coaching staff that we are able to use the game of basketball to enrich the lives of those we interact with, both inside and outside of our organization. We believe that our attention to detail, our growth mindset, and our commitment to lifelong learning allows us to help our players achieve their fullest potential. We are passionately committed to providing players, parents, and coaches with everything they need to reach their goals. These core values run through everything we do. Check out our website, www.headstartbasketball.com, and discover why you should attend a Head Start basketball camp this summer. Hope to see you there. But let's go in reverse. So we're talking about players that have gone through your program and they're out in the real world. Let's go backwards, because you talked a little bit about being involved with your JV program and your middle school and the way that your school is set up. So can you talk a little bit about how you set up your middle school program, your JV program, so that it flows into what you're trying to accomplish as a varsity team?
Yes. And, that's something also that's kind of changed over the years, but a few things that haven't changed is, for example, at the middle school level, and sometimes, my coaches still get mad at me for this, we don't allow them to play zone. Because I believe if you're going to train kids and you're going to, work with their footwork and teach them how to play defense, you have to be able to play man-to-man defense. So at our 7th grade team level, our 8th grade team level, probably once they get through 75% of their season, a coach will then introduce zone. And there's been times where, we're taking L's because we're playing man.
So you don't believe in the 3rd grade basketball zone, then, I take it.
No. At the 3rd grade, like, we have an interfaith program as well, which is 3rd through 6th grade, and it's all volunteer coaches. So it's not like a lot of these dads who are just wanting to coach their kid and be a help know a ton about basketball. But I'll run a coaching clinic for them. Maybe they get through halfway through the season, they'll start playing some zone then. But starting out, I tell them the same thing. I'll even go to practices when I can if they need me to kind of implement certain things. But I am very big on, hey, we have to teach them the fundamentals. And if you wait to start, when we get them at the JV level, they will not know the basics. And a lot of the teams I've been able to coach have been labeled as very strong defensive-minded teams. I would say I'm a defensive-minded coach, although I do love offense. But really just digging into the simple things fundamentally about defense at the 7th and 8th grade level, then obviously the JV level. Now, if you ask me as the varsity coach now, we'll play zone. but we still play a lot of man, and I love zone. We'll play 3-2 and trap you in that. We'll play a 2-3 and extend it out and match up. But I think at the middle school level, even to a certain degree, the JV level, although they have the ability to play a little bit more zone, it is very key that you're teaching kids. We talk about like nose to chest at the JV level, at the middle school level. We'll use terms like you want to stay low and not rise up and break the glass ceiling. So there's different terminology that our coaches will use with our kids, and the kids appreciate. Even if a kid's really slow, now he knows that he has to back off just a little bit, but we want him to be able to close out and not give an open look. So our coaches do a really nice job of that. And then basic fundamentals of being able to handle the ball. Shooting is another big one, obviously, because everyone wants to shoot. So, properly, how do you catch the ball? How do you pass properly? How do you place your hands on the basketball? And pivoting is paramount. There's so many kids, if they just understood how to pivot properly, instantly they'd be better players. So we'll do little breakdown drills at the middle school level, just basic pivot drills every single day to get them, comfortable just being able to pivot without a ball, then with a ball. And you'll be amazed that you now get a kid who used to catch the ball and just freeze, or, they kind of hug the ball and bend down. Now they're in a nice kind of triple attack position. Their feet are spread out appropriately, and they're actually ready to make a pass or make a move, or someone kind of closes out on them. They even know how to pivot away. So those things that some people may take for granted, I'm a simple coach. Even though I've learned a ton of stuff over the years, we're not very extravagant with, the whole X's and O's, even though I do think we run some pretty good things. But the basic fundamentals, rebounding, boxing out properly, are things that are very important to me in our program. Running hard, transition defense. Those are things when you're not shooting well on that certain night, you can still be in a game. If you can defend, if you can rebound, bearing in mind, like, you just hands down aren't out talented, you can be in almost any game when you're dialing in on those things. So those are important fundamental things within our program that we do not stray away from.
I think what I hear you saying and what makes a lot of sense is that there's some basic fundamental principles that kids who are coming up through your school as you're in your program need to have. And then once they've been taught those basic skills at the middle school level and done the repetitions that they need in order to be able to, execute those in a game, now they get to the varsity level and they have and understand man-to-man principles and where to be. And now you can play that zone, you can play that trap because they understand how to play positional man-to-man defense. Whereas if you just threw them in a 2-3 zone and put the tallest kid standing in the middle, like a lot of times you see at these younger levels, those kids really never learn how to play. And same thing with whether it's pivoting or rebounding. There's some basics that every kid needs to learn, and if they're being taught that at an early level, lead into what you try to accomplish with your varsity team.
Yeah, those fundamentals begin to shape the players, and obviously everyone is not going to move up through the funnel because the funnel at the top stays the same from a roster standpoint. But they begin to see and figure out, because we'll also have our 7th and 8th grade team come watch JV practices, come watch varsity practices. Obviously, they come to some of the basketball games. So I'm pretty visible throughout the program. Just walking over to the middle school, talking with the guys, making sure that our varsity guys go to middle school games. Like our 8th grade team this year, they were 20-0. And our coach has done a phenomenal. Again, we have great talent on that team, but again, sticking to the fundamentals, spacing on the floor, being unselfish, making the extra pass, trying to just lock up and down defensively. The mindset of that, of a kid now rolling into our JV program, knowing, okay, what the expectation will be, but now the game will be a little bit faster. It'll become a little bit more complex in terms of offensively what they might install. Ultimately, in hopes of then being on the varsity program, where it's even more faster, but they already have the basics. Now we're drilling them just at a faster pace and saying, okay, here's the differences. Guys are quicker, they're bigger, they're stronger, faster. Just like every level you go up, there's a little bit of shock, but it's not as shocking. And quite frankly, those fundamentals have allowed us to beat teams where most people would have said, you have no chance. Boxing out, rebounding, being able to pass to an outside hand, meet the pass, catch with your feet in the air, landing softly. So now you get to determine which foot will be your pivot foot. A lot of ball fakes and shot fakes, all those things, can make up when you're not maybe the quickest guy. Being able to understand that those areas of the game really can help you and negate other things of players you're going against when you really understand how to play the game of basketball. So cutting hard, screening well and with a purpose would be other things that are very important to us. Passing the ball as an individual is open, not after they're open. Then you get to our level, like today in practice, we're working on executing dribble handoffs the right way just because of some of the stuff we run, and we have some good penetrators and three-point shooters. So breaking that down to see what angle do you take to drive at to ensure if that guy's running a blast cut to get the guy that you're DHOing with to get him the ball where he can still get it and operate. All those things, man, I firmly believe in that you got to work on every day. Again, I go back to shooting is very important, but think about this. What percentage of shots are the best shooters in the world making, season in, season out? Like if Stephen Curry is one of the best shooters in the world, we all know what his percentage is. So we all know then there will be nights when he will shoot 30% and their team will shoot a low percentage. So how do you still compete when you're not shooting that high percentage or you're not necessarily getting to the free throw line if it ends up being a low-scoring game? To me, the answer is getting back in transition and being set, being able to rebound the ball so you're not giving the opponent second and third opportunities. You have a chance. Now the Warriors, they've been able to do this, outscore people. But when you look throughout the country in high school basketball teams, unless you're one of those teams that are, at the level where they're bringing in the best players in the country, you're not going to outscore everybody every night. So you got to be committed to fundamentals because, in my opinion, the hardest thing to do in the game is to methodically manufacture half-court offense and be efficient and score. That's like the hardest thing to do. To me, in the game of basketball, when you're talking about team, when a team is back and set and you be able to consistently score.
Yeah, I agree. I think one of the things that's totally underrated from both a playing and a coaching standpoint is just getting up and down the floor in transition, going both directions. I know that's one of the things that, even when I've been coaching my kids who are, below the high school level, one of the things that I've been trying to put an emphasis on is as soon as the ball changes hands, as soon as that possession changes, is we're not standing and staring at the ball for even a half a second. As soon as that ball transitions, you're transitioning and starting to sprint whichever direction it is that you need to go. And I think that that's something that if you could just get every player in your program to understand that between the 2 3-point lines, you need to sprint as hard as you can and get back or get down the floor and get easy baskets going the other direction. I think you could win a lot of games just by if you could get your team to do that.
Fully agreed. So one of the things we do in practice, kind of like what you said, 3-point line to 3-point line, we talk about aiming for excellence. Did you just give us championship level of effort? Then guys that don't, the whole team pays the price, and then you build that culture of you have players then talking to other players in the right way about, hey, we're better than that. We need more from you. So, again, everybody's now owning, knowing that the culture and the expectation is this. And we will not allow anyone to come into this culture and bring it down. So when you can train the kids And you now have, like we have, 5 seniors this year. You have those guys talking the other guys in the right way about, hey, that's not how we do it. This is how we do it. We're going to, and why do we do it this way? Because now you're in a generation of, even as a coach, I'm fine with the kid saying, hey, coach, can you talk to me about the purpose of that drill? I'll explain it to you. You ask me in the right way. You want to know why? Because we are now in that culture and generation of they want to know why. They want to know how it's going to help them. So I've learned, you just want to be as clear and provide as much clarity as possible. So they can't. It's not that they don't understand. It's not that they don't know. The only thing you have left is they must not care. And if you don't care, then you're not going to play for us.
No question about that. Can you describe what your practice planning regimen is? Like, how do you go about on a daily basis planning your practices to make sure that you're getting the maximum amount of your time on the floor and the maximum out of your kids every single day?
Okay, so you'll probably laugh at this, but we've been real fortunate. I've been blessed. I have like 5 assistant coaches. Um, I'm the only one that works full time at our school, and like one of the other coaches is like the 8th grade coach, but they're great and they know a lot of basketball. A lot of them played college, and one of my coaches actually is like a strength trainer that deals a lot with stretching and all that. So the regimen, well, how I plan practice would be, so say I had practice today. I went to our school play tonight, so I've already done, well, we play tomorrow, but I would have already done the practice for tomorrow based on what I saw in today's practice going, okay, we need to tweak that. We need to work on that. But there are things that we do every day. Like we do pivoting every day. We do certain shot drills. Like we'll have Micah combined with some other things just for footwork purposes that we do every single day. There's certain defensive drills, kind of jumping to the ball, like a kind of a 2-on-2 drill that we do. We do a full court layup drill, and we'll change or increase the number that they need to make over time. And then we'll kind of, as we start out the season, start with a little bit lower number, and then obviously gravitate to a higher number and stick with that for the rest of the season. Then when you kind of get into the meat of practice, whether it's the shell drills that we do, and we spice those up, and we do a lot of shooting, just shooting drills where everything is competitive. So like if we're working on our fast break for 5 minutes, we're scoring that. There's a winner, there's a loser, and 11 seconds would be a down and back. You got to make it. If you don't make the time, then your team goes again. It could be a half court back, full court back, 17 seconds. So we time everything to show our guys the importance of, if you're going to run that, you need to make this time. So there's always a goal. And whatever team is running, the rest of the guys always are clapping as they're running. And I don't view it as punishment. It's just like, hey, this is going to help us get better as well. There's a winner, there's a loser. So I tell them, you're getting rewarded right now because this running is going to help you get better. So I'm pretty methodical and I would say meticulous in terms of practice and how we communicate. I also twice a year will allow captains, like we'll do this next week. They get to create a practice plan, and it's kind of a fun day because it's very interesting the drills that they'll choose.
I'm sure.
But it's a fun thing, even though practice still will be, intense and we'll get stuff accomplished. But the fact that they're able to kind of look at the past practice plans, talk about what they think their favorite drills were. So we allow them to do that, and that's a fun, I think, exciting thing for them. And then we do basic passing and catching every single day. How do you catch the ball? How do you square up? Those things I never want our players to lose sight of, because you know how this works. When you're under pressure, you're going to go back and revert back to the habits that you hold deeply and the most closely to you. So we want to make sure you have good habits. So no matter who we're playing, where we're playing, when we're playing, you know how to execute the fundamentals. You know how to see that a trap is about to materialize and you can retreat, dribble, or you can get low and widen out that double team and, pass out of the trap. So we work on things like that every single day. And then I'm not huge on scouting. I kind of take the Coach Wooden philosophy where, my assistants will scout some, but I'm not spending a ton of our practices. All right, guys, this is what the opponent is going to do. And now I'm going to have the second team run 7 things that they do offensively. We're more big picture about, all right, who are their best players? What are their tendencies? So what do we need to do if we know he likes to drive this way? We know he loves to shoot. Oh, you know what? He can't score off the bounce. We're going to run him off the line every time and make him have to put it down. We're going to activate the offense and force them into something they don't want to do. Again, at the college level, I'm sure, scouting may be way more important, but I'm just big on preparing our guys and giving them the necessary intel that they need. And obviously, if we're going to make some, strategic adjustments with how we're going to guard someone, we'll do that. But it's really about preparing our guys to the best of our abilities. And I love when I'm able to just sit on the bench and barely have to kind of direct traffic and allow my point guard to facilitate and those guys do what they need to do, and I'm just kind of moving the chess pieces of, all right, let's sub here. Okay, we probably need to change to this right now. Call a timeout. One of the things I'll say is, all right, what's working, what's not? Really getting feedback and say, this is what I see, but I'm not being trapped by a guy. I'm over here coaching y'all. I'm not being pressured. So what do you think here? And then guiding them as need be. Obviously, we need to run this, or I think we need now to change this. This is not working. Obviously, I'll say, all right, now we're going to do this. But the more you can give players ownership, the more you're going to get out of them. So that's something that's been very positive and worked extremely well for our program. So I delegate quite a bit to my assistants as well. So you would see me going back and forth. We always do bigs and guards, and then sometimes we'll have the bigs do the guard work as well. So I got coaches at both ends, and I'm going back and forth being a cheerleader, and I'm interjecting certain things like, hey, when you caught it right there, maybe you weren't low enough, or you caught that and you shuffled your feet. You know, can you go a whole season and not travel? So I'm being a cheerleader, but I'm also doing a lot of correcting, and I'm very mindful of also wanting to praise and create positive energy to our players. So I'm always trying to do kind of like if I'm going to correct you, I want to find 2 or 3 positive things to give them some attaboys and then go back to correcting them. Because, coaches can get stuck in a rut of finding everything that players do wrong. Players get tired of that.
Yeah, they get tired of that fast. I agree.
Absolutely. So, early on, I would do that, and I've learned over the years. I mean, really, a lot of Coach Wooden books talks about that, and then just some other coaches and watching practices to really, as John Gordon has his book, The Positive Dog, and then like the Energy Bus I read as well, just to bring energy. And then one of the biggest things for me as a coach is, what does my team need from me today? Because every day is different, or you just were on the road and now you're going to hit a Monday practice, or say we're practicing at 6:15. Do they need me to bring energy? Do they need me to back off and just allow them to work through whatever it is throughout a practice? Do they need me to be loud and kind of crazy and more fun? Do I need to push a guy certain buttons, kind of depending on what's going on? So I also try to be in tune to what, I'm asking them to bring a lot every day to practice. I also want to be sensitive to what do they need from Coach Brown in practice today. And, they need me to create the momentum today because it's been a long week and they're tired, and I know we still need to practice. So do I need to customize the practice where we're going to shoot a ton of free throws? We're not going to go up and down a lot, but we're still going to get after it and focus on rebounding and a few other things and get them out there in 50 minutes. I think I've gotten better at those type things. It used to be we have to practice 2+ hours every day, and there's no way that we're ever going to reduce that. Like this week, we practiced Monday, we played Tuesday. They shot 100 free throws on Wednesday. We practiced today for about 55 minutes. We play tomorrow. So again, as I continue on this journey as a coach, knowing what their body needs, For us, as we're getting later into the season, stretching is important. We lift on Mondays and Wednesdays, which is still really, really important with our strength coach. Um, so really being sensitive to what their needs are. Do we need to watch film today? Do we just need to be in the locker room loving on one another? I really become sensitive to those type of things, because when you are sensitive to those things, kids see that coach really wants to be in tune to our needs. And when you get to the end of your season, you don't want someone busting an ankle in practice. So you're creating things and doing things very um, in a short time frame, versus in the beginning or the middle of the season, you were doing a lot of those reps a lot longer, because our season ends, the last week in February, first week in March. So we're starting to wind down conference play, and rest is of the utmost importance for us.
Yeah, I think that adaptability is key when you talked about it in terms of just how you interact with each individual player. And sometimes there are different buttons to push for different players. But then that same principle applies to your team, knowing when it's time to push them a little harder, when it's time to dial back, when maybe they're tired or when they need that energy from you. I think adaptability, even more than it's ever been as a coach, is a key component of being successful at whatever level of basketball you're coaching at today.
And for right now, that is another big thing for me, because you, kids are, people will always say, well, kids are radically different. I'm not going to say they're radically different. There's just way more distractions, which they can lose focus more quickly. Kids 10 years ago, if you set an expectation, they'll meet it. Kids today, if you set an expectation, they'll meet it. There's just many more things to get them distracted away from that expectation. So you have to be strategic in how you lay it out. Enforce whatever procedures, policies, or expectations you're going to put in front of them. But then let them know that you really care about them, you really love them. But hey, I need maximum effort, because if you give that, you'll see a lot of fruit, as we go throughout our season. And for this year, they're really seeing that, enjoying that. We have an opportunity right now to be perfect in conference play, which would be special for this team. And then we have a great shot at making a nice tournament run. So I'm very pleased with where we are. And, like everybody says, you enjoy the journey, and that's why it's a season.
What's your biggest challenge going forward for the rest of the year if you're going to get to where you want to go?
Right now, I would say making sure our kids' minds stay out of the clouds and they don't listen to the outside noise, and that they continue to believe in one another, trust in one another. They come to practice with a high level of focus to those fundamentals, because like we're number one in our citywide Sweet 16. It looks like we'll be seeded number one in the state for our tournament seeding. We beat Long Island Lutheran, and there's talk about, well, you could be in USA Today and all this kind of stuff, which that doesn't really matter to me. But kids watch that. Kids watch all that stuff. So keeping them focused and saying, look, you got to be humble. We've been blessed with a tremendous season. You still have to be hungry, but don't forget where all your talents and your gifts came from. And you have a great opportunity to really leave a legacy here. Like one of my parents was telling my players, number one in January is great for the fans and the spectators. You really want to do something special, you need to be number one in March.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It feels good in January, but it doesn't feel nearly as good as it does in March. You're 100% right with that, Shonn.
Exactly.
All right, so let's talk about your most famous alum and how you came to have the opportunity to coach Steph Curry.
Okay, so Stephen came to their family came to Charlotte Christian, I believe, when he was in seventh grade. I knew about Del Curry just because he was the legendary pro shooter, great family, been in Charlotte for a long time. But I didn't work in the middle school. But then when I heard about this family, and my middle school coach was like, Coach, he has to be. You know how they do. If your dad played, you got to be good, which is not
Right.
always the case. So played middle school here, his seventh grade year, very, unassuming. Um, they moved his eighth grade year because his dad was in Toronto and they were going to retire, so they wanted the whole family to be together. So he was not here for a year, which means Seth wasn't here, Sadell wasn't here. Then came back, and there's this age-old discussion about, all right, well, what are we going to do here in terms of he's playing basketball at the high school level? He is pretty good. Um, we made a decision then that he would play JV basketball. No one can argue with it now. He was skilled enough to be on a varsity team, but just, physically, would he be able to do a whole lot? And we felt like allowing him to run the JV team, play 20 plus minutes a game would really help him to develop. So he had a great year. And at the end of his JV season, we pulled him up to varsity, and we're in the state tournament. And towards the end of the game, I put him in the game. We go down. Somebody turned the ball over. Other team goes down, scores. He comes down, uh, takes one dribble, crosses the guy over, launches a three, and hits the bottom of the net. And I look over to my assistant and I said, all right, that's the kid that we're handing the keys to the program to for the next 3 years. Um, and he every year he just brought something, another dimension to his game. Dell actually became one of my assistants. And this wasn't the kind of thing like, I don't know, I don't think you know what you're doing with my kid. I need to have say so. He really just wanted to be a part of our program. He thought it was a great program. So the caveat to that was I would love to have Dell Curry in practice every day, working with our guards and doing shooting drills. I mean, that's awesome. His kids had to sign off on that they would be okay with him being the coach. So we talked that through. So Coach Curry was Coach Curry at practice. I'm sure, he continued to be dad at home, and maybe he was dad in the car or whenever. But really modeled through those couple of years for me, because I ended up coaching my son. I coached my son the last 4 years. Now he's in college. So Dell did a great job of modeling what it's like, even though he wasn't the head coach, how to balance even in the frustration of why did he make that move? Why did he do that? He really kept it to himself, and we would assign other assistant coaches to relay messages so it would not strain the relationship. Because as you can see, they have an unbelievable relationship with their father and their mother. Whereas a lot of coaches who've coached their kids, that's not the case. So I learned a lot from him in that regard as well. But, Stefan in particular, always a really good shooter, always very humble. His biggest thing is that he always wanted to make other players better, and he took that personally. And it was almost to a fault. Like I remember one time in practice, we were working on something, and he would pass the ball where a player should have cut, but the player never cut. And I say, hey, Stefan, like, if we're charting turnovers right now, like, you're racking those up. And he'd be like, but coach, I see this. Like, he would be open. You're right, but he's not there. so, so his vision and understanding of the game was just like, man, he has a great feel for the game. He understands how to play the game. He understands how to make people better. He sees things materializing, kind of before they happen. And that was when he was in a really young body, a little bit kind of frail. Jersey really didn't even fit him at the time. But just his mindset and his will to get better and to compete, second to none. Didn't matter if you looked at him and said, well, he's not that big or not that strong. Again, his mindset and the will he had to compete, even to today, is to me two of the biggest things. Obviously, he's a great shooter, he's a great teammate, but he competes, and man, that to me, that intangible, because it's not really something you can give to someone. Um, his mindset of it doesn't matter what I may look like, or I'm not the strongest or the biggest. I know how to play. I know how to work. I've honed some skills here that are second to none, and he's really been able to demonstrate that. I mean, when he first got into the league, and now two-time MVP and doing some of the things, he's basically changed the game. Uh, but if you ever listen to him talk or you watch him on the court, some of the things I've been able to mention in this podcast, you see those things. And I'm not by any means saying, well, it was Shonn Brown. I mean, obviously he has great parents that instill great values, but some of those values that have been incorporated in our culture, and I'm sure some of the values that he learned from Davidson with the TCC, trust, care, commitment, he still carries with him, and it's very evident when you just watch him as a young Christian man, who is just a role model for people in the world right now.
So how did that competitiveness and that work ethic show themselves on a daily basis when he was with you at Charlotte Christian? How did those things manifest themselves?
Okay, so, like when the shooting gun first came out, we were fortunate enough pretty early on to get one. So, Stephen and even his brother, they were always in the gym and unforced. It's not like their parents said, you have to go to the gym. The parents just basically said, okay, if you want to do this, this is how you probably need to do it, but we're not going to force you. But if you're telling me you want to do this, here's how this works. So they were very driven. I remember, just Stephen, even as a freshman, just kind of talking about my goals are to play after college. My goals are to be a pro. And, when you're hearing that, you're never going to tell a kid no, or you're not going to say it's not attainable because you don't know. I mean, obviously, if he was terrible, I'd be saying, well, can you just work on helping our high school team today and the other stuff. But the work ethic there just continued to increase. Even when his early years in the pros, they came to the school and they were shooting, and he and Seth were doing a drill. I was kind of rebounding. Dale was rebounding. And it's kind of like some call it the Ray Allen drill. Some call it Celtic drill. Where you make X amount of threes, go to the next spot. You can do it in 2 minutes. Can you go around and come back around? So Seth just got hot and blistered the drill. So Seth goes, all right, everybody, let's go eat. Steph was like, you know what? You can go ahead and do that, but you need to understand I'm not leaving until I've done this drill with excellence. I'm not leaving the gym until I get it to where I need to get it. I'll be here all night. And just driven, again, and I use that word excellence way more than perfect, but so driven to be excellent. You even watch him now, now it's kind of a fan affair of when he does his working out, and people want to watch him, film him, all this, but he's legitimately getting ready for battle when he's doing those ball handling drills and everything else. And I know the crowd loves it, but the super competitive nature that he possesses, it's incredible to me. I remember being at his house out in the Bay Area, and he has at the time he had the Golden Tee game. You remember the big video game?
Golden Tee? Oh yeah.
So I had not played that game, that much, and I love golf and play golf and go and hang out and all that. I not really played that game, so I'm like, hey man, I'm down to play with y'all. But I haven't really played that well. And he was like, Coach, you're on your own right now. We're all competing here. You got it's like, Coach, I'm trying to win. That's what I'm doing. I'm trying to win. And he's always just really done it in the right way. He's very humble. Again, he's a great teammate. I just remember how he would always encourage the guys here. His senior year, we were 33-3. And on paper, some of the teams that we beat, you would have been like, no way. Charlotte Christian doesn't have a chance, when they just kind of looked at us and kind of judged the book by its cover, and really had a sensational season. We ended up losing in the state championship game. But fine young man, hard worker, great attitude, loves the Lord. And again, as you watch him even today, like even as an all-star, and continues to want to be an awesome husband to his wife and an awesome father to his family. He wants to share his faith with the world. He's by no means perfect. And I'm just still honored that in all of that, he's still, willing to, have a relationship, with me, if he's in town and he can make it over or we can catch up. I've been fortunate to, still work with his select camp in the summers. So again, just a lot of things he's been able to do where a lot of other people can't do. He's just been gracious to keep me involved and um, continue to speak highly of Charlotte Christian School because he firmly believed he was taught quite a bit here, whether it was on the basketball court or in the classroom, in regards to his faith or academically, and then to move on to Davidson and all the things that staff imparted into him. So he's just truly a great individual who really believes in giving back and fully recognizing all persons that have played a role in helping him to get to where he is today is just amazing to me.
All right, I'm going to put you on the spot. Who's winning the 3-point contest, Steph or Seth?
Okay, I had an interview today with the paper, and they asked me this exact question, and I told them, here's how I'm going to answer this. I hope they both tie, and you can't break a tie, and they give 2 trophies.
Good answer.
That's a politically correct answer.
Good answer, Shonn. I like that. I want to ask you about his recruitment to Davidson, because obviously now you look back at that time and you look at the player that he's become. And for a lot of people on the outside looking at that, they're like, well, how did a guy that was that good end up at Davidson and not at North Carolina or not at Duke or not at NC State? And so how did that process go? And at the time, were you surprised that those bigger schools weren't knocking down his door to get him to go to those schools?
Okay, so I answered it. So I would say yes and no. There was a, great shooter. Stephen had some intangibles that I would tell coaches, hey, you can put weight on him, you can get him a little bit quicker, but the package already comes with knocking it down better than most of the guys you have in your program now. The package already comes with his ability to change speeds. The package already comes with the intangible of seeing things materialize before they actually happen. Great passer. He can handle the ball. But you know how some college coaches are. If you don't pass the eye test, you don't pass the eye test. So it was one of those things that we navigated and just said, you know what? Whatever plan that God has for you will be the plan that He has for you. And right now we don't know, but we're going to navigate this and we're going to walk alongside you and see what happens. And there were some schools that he really would have just walked on if he had the ability to do that. But then there were other schools that said, hey, I'd like for you to walk on. And then he didn't want to do that. And, when Davidson came along, it seemed to be a great fit for him. And I don't want to mention a ton of names, but I will mention 2 names here. A guy named Stacy Palmar, who was at Virginia Tech. And then I'm trying to remember where else Stacy was before that, but he was one of the first guys to recruit Stephen and saw something in him that a lot of other people didn't see. And the other guy is Greg Marshall, who's now at Wichita State. Greg Marshall was at Winthrop at the time. He came to our gym quite a bit and was like, I need this kid. This kid is going to be sensational. Obviously, Coach McKillop saw that too, but Greg Marshall saw that in him as well, and obviously was a program that offered him. But I guess at the end of the day, when Stephen had to make his decision, he just felt a comfort level at Davidson, a comfort level with Coach McKillop, and through the conversations that they had. And again, they allowed him to play through his mistakes, which is huge for him. If he had gone to a program where he turns it over 3 times just because physically he wasn't totally ready yet, and the coach then puts him at the end of the bench, what does it do to his confidence? Will he get up there and actually shoot the ball? So, Coach McKillop and his staff really saw some things in him and allowed him to play through. And I would say that's a big reason for, part of his success as he continued to grow through Davidson and then, go a year early and all of that. Because you see a lot of kids now, as great as they are and athletic and they can jump out of gym and all that, and they're good athletes and maybe they can shoot it some, but do they totally understand how to play the game? When the coaches don't get what they think they should get out of them, sometimes they recruit over them. A lot of times they don't play those guys anymore. And I mean, look at the transfer list. I mean, you know that. That's not a
Yeah, the
secret.
transfer list is crazy anymore. It's you better end up in the right spot. That's a key. I mean, we've talked to a bunch of guys about that, whether it's high school coaches talking about trying to influence their players and share with them, trying to get them to the best places that they can. That's a good fit and not necessarily the highest level. So I think there's something to be said, and Stefan's a great example of that. That if you go to a place that is right for you, both from a basketball standpoint, academically, socially, whatever the case might be, it ends up working out for you. And obviously couldn't have worked out any better for him.
Yeah, no, and I remember. I mean, I remember like this was yesterday. So I remember going up to Davidson. When he was going to, announce I will not be returning and all of this. And I mean, I remember it was difficult for him because of the bond that was created with those coaches there. Obviously, as a coach, Coach McKillop's like, oh my gosh, I'm losing a guy that just did what he did in the whole tournament. And because I went through all that, my wife and I, we traveled with Stefan's parents up there to, we were in, I think it was Dearborn, Michigan, when they were just, points away from really making it happen there. Um, but I agree in terms of the bond that he created while at Davidson, the things that he learned there, being able to play through his mistakes, and then, when he entered into the pros, learning, obviously his dad was already a phenomenal pro, but then understanding kind of that way of life, still being competitive, because we all know the first few years the team wasn't great. He had challenges with other, guys in the locker room, but he stuck to the process through a couple of different coaches, continued to work, which again, that work ethic. And, as that team materialized, they were able to put together some other really, really nice pieces. And you ended up seeing world champions before we all knew it, right before our eyes.
Yeah, absolutely. The rest is history. I think one of the things that comes out of that whole story is that there's lots of guys with physical tools. There's lots of guys that have, the athleticism or maybe the basketball skills. And obviously, Steph has proved himself to be the best shooter in the history of basketball. I don't think at this point that's even disputable. But I think what I hear you saying, what I'd pull out of the story if I was someone listening to the podcast, is just the fact that what really set him apart was that work ethic and that competitiveness that, again, even when you take that to the highest level, those guys who get to an all NBA level of performance, it's not only their physical tools, it's not only the basketball skill that they've developed, but it's just that maniacal competitiveness, that work ethic that drives them to be better. And to use a term that you used earlier, they're striving for excellence. And the best players in the world just continue to push towards that standard a little bit harder than the guys that are a tier below them. And I truly believe that.
Yeah, and obviously, I mean, skill is all implied into this. Obviously, if he can shoot the ball and do certain things, he wouldn't be who he is today. But it goes beyond that. There's also this mindset and the mental of always wanting to grow, of not saying that, well, I'm just better than whoever, kind of removing that and just saying, I'm going out to compete and I'm going to hone these skills to be the best that I can be. And when I'm at my best, I can try to get my teammates to their best. And when everyone else is elevated, it could be something that's extremely special. Because I don't want to. Everybody in the NBA is good. I mean, that was why you wouldn't be in the NBA. So I don't want to downplay the skill, but the skill is already implied. Because we all know, and we've heard the saying, talent by itself is just talent. So because you have a lot of guys also that are talented, but their attitudes, decisions that they make, cause them to really stumble, fall hard, and sometimes some can't even get back up based on some of the decisions they make. And again, I'm not saying by any means that Stephen Curry is perfect, but if you watch the way he tries to live his life, And you watch just how when he's out there competing and even when he's on the bench cheering for his teammates, it just says a lot about who he is. And again, him being thankful for what he's been able to accomplish, fully recognizing that there were a lot of other people that kind of played in that role. And he wants to continue to glorify God in what he's doing, but be very excellent in what he's doing. And he is obviously, continuing to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. I told my dad one time before the Warriors became the Warriors, I saw Steph play here in Cleveland in person, and that was the first time I had ever seen him play, live. And I watched him, and I came away from that game just marveling at the footwork and the ball handling and the shooting, just the way he moved around the court and the things that he was able to see. And I told my dad after that, I'm like, this guy, he's one of my favorite people to watch. And obviously, as a Cleveland fan, I didn't enjoy watching him quite nearly as much over the last 4 or 5 years. At least we got one. But I just remember coming away from that particular game that I saw, just being so impressed by the footwork and just the ability out on the floor to get where he wanted to go. And I think that was before really he was who he's become now. And it just was, again, something that was obvious to me. Like, I watched it, I'm like, there's nobody else in the league that's doing the things that he was doing in terms of coming off screens and shooting off the dribble and all the things that he's become known for as the Warriors have risen in prominence and as he's continued to improve through the course of his career. So we won't attribute all of it to you, Shonn, but I got to believe that it's got to be satisfying to know that you played a small part in helping get him started and get him off on the right foot so that he could get to the heights that he's been able to attain.
Yeah, you know what? It's a great feeling to have played that role. Again, I would tell you this. I'm a much better coach today than I was when I coached him. And I say that seriously just because I've been, that's 2006 is when he graduated. So, I mean, it's 2019. There's just so much I've been able to learn, even like in the last 3-4 years, just being able to spend time with the Warriors coaches, just in some of the splits that they run, different things that they do, some small nuances of the game I've been able to implement now. But thoroughly enjoyed my journey so far here at Charlotte Christian, and like we talked about earlier, building a program. And again, the culture thing is so important, and I've enjoyed being able to do that, and very blessed by, because of the mere fact that players come back having enjoyed their experience in the culture. So that will always be something that will be very important, and they'll come and check, like when Stephen was here and he brought back his trophy, and then we retired his jersey. He did a devotion for the team. Still, Coach, culture is pretty good. Coach is still. I remember, Coach. You said one thing again. You've always said that. You still saying that. So there's just certain things that we just will not stray from, and it's cool to watch those older guys when they come back. Yep, same thing he was saying when I. It's funny, but it also lets you know that, well, I am getting older, but. Because, the longer you go with this and the older the players are that are out there working and living life, that means I'm getting older as well. But very thankful to be living, breathing, and still being able to enjoy coaching the awesome game of basketball.
You're getting older and you're getting better, Shonn.
I appreciate that.
Well, we want to thank you for jumping on with us tonight. It's been a pleasure to have you on the show with us and get a chance to learn more about your program, learn about what it was like to coach one of the best players in the world. Before we get out of here, if you wouldn't mind sharing your contact information so that people who have listened to the show can reach out to you if they'd like to. And then if there's anything else that we didn't hit on, or if you want to leave us with one final nugget of wisdom before we get out, please go ahead and do that as well.
Yeah, so you'll probably laugh at this too. I'm not a big social media guy, even though people keep pressing me saying I should be. My handle there would be Coach Brown is my Twitter handle. I do not tweet a lot. I'm not on Instagram, even though my kids tell me I need to be. But my email is Shonn.Brown, SHONN.Brown at Charchrist, which is CHARCHRIST.com. And if whoever's listening, wants to talk about building a program, they want to talk X's and O's. If they have questions about, well, I have a player that I think will go through the ranks and could do whatever, how did you handle this or handle that? Or, the Curry family, as I was telling in my interview today, they truly released their kids to our program where they just said, coaches, y'all take them. You do whatever you need to do. If there's ever a problem, we're going to send our kids to you. We just want to support your program. We want to be supporters, encouragers, spectators. That's it. They really should write a book on parents releasing their children to programs and allowing coaches to do their job, because they did an excellent job of that. But I'd love to help anybody that would ever want to know anything in regards to that. I don't know it all. I would just be sharing from my experience, and we've been fortunate enough to have success with that. And if you even want to kind of call it a nugget per se, I would just say, stay true to whoever the Lord has made you to be. Don't try to be someone else, although you can adopt or adapt certain things. Be whoever God made you to be, and don't try to be anything or anyone but that, and enjoy the gifts that you have. And we're all charged with cultivating our gifts. So even me as a basketball coach, I could be a great coach. I could be a good coach. I could be an average coach. I could have great players. I could have average players or whatever. Ultimately, everyone is charged with cultivating their gifts. So you get a coach as a shepherd and a facilitator and a motivator. You get teachers in the classrooms that are going to nurture you, challenge you, inspire you. But whatever gifts you have, you want to cultivate those. And I think Stephen is a true example of someone, still he got help in all those areas of his life, but he truly has cultivated the talent and gift that he has. And that's one of the reasons he's so successful.
Shonn, that's a great way to end it. We can't thank you enough for jumping on the episode with us tonight. And to everyone out there, we will catch you on our next episode. Thanks. Head Start Basketball's Player Development Academy offers Cleveland area players a unique opportunity to improve their basketball skills. Regardless of a player's age, skill level, or position, training with Head Start Basketball will elevate your game to the next level. Do you want to improve your ball handling, become a better shooter, or develop into a more skilled, confident player? Our Academy classes offer training that's designed to do just that. Our training sessions are innovative and will have you learning skills that are transferable to actual games. We have 4 different class skill levels for boys and girls, ages 4 and up. All Player Development Academy classes will be held at the Strongsville Recreation Center. For more information or to get registered, please visit www.headstartbasketball.com. Thanks for listening to the Hoop Heads podcast, brought to you by Head Start Basketball.